And me, Gary, on Night Dreams Talk Radio. We'll be back in a couple minutes.
What we are asking for from the government is full disclosure. We know what we're seeing, and there are so many of us. We're not going to
As I gaze upon the annals of time, one thing that comes through: we are not alone in this universe. It's a thought that rings true. Ancient cave dwellers drew spacecraft on the poles. It's a recurring theme. I've seen the same thing while walking late at night, and I know it's not a dream.
From Malmstrom to Manat, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadows dance in the sea.
If you tell the truth, they will ridicule everything you say and do. It's all part of a deception. It's a puppet master's tool. And I've seen those craft shut down the silos from 10 miles away. And there ain't nothing that the Pentagon can do. They can't make them go away.
From Malmstrom to Manat, Boston to LA, there are people asking questions and they will not go away. But what has been seen might not be what it seems. The government's shadows dance in the sea.
You can advertise your business on Night Dreams Talk Radio, and you will be heard worldwide. Why not contact us at nightdreamstalkradio@gmail.com. Night Dreams Talk Radio, After Dark, wants to give a big shout out to all the truckers that listen to our show.
And without you truckers, we wouldn't be where we're at today. Again, a big shout out to you guys. You made Night Dreams Talk Radio what it is. Now, you can check out our website by going to www.nightdreamstalkradio.com. Take a look at it. We have who our guest was in the past week and who our guest is coming up. We got some great pictures in the gallery. We also got some tidbits like on, well, cryptics and Bigfoot and UFOs and all that stuff. We got a great guest here, Rob here. It just came back from the UK. We're going to kind of get into, well, UFOs, time travel, and all that stuff here for the next hour. Are you still there, Rob?
Oh, I sure am.
Well, first thing I'm going to do is have you plug your book.
Which one?
Well, let's plug your latest one and whatever other one you want to plug.
Well, my two latest ones are The Mandela Effect, Shattered Reality, The Mandela Effect, and the other one is Deadly UFOs and the Disappeared are the two very latest. There's another book due out soon. Right now it's about ready to go to the State Department. It's actually a sci-fi book, and I'm doing it in tangent with a member of the State Department, so it has to have State Department approval before we can go ahead and get it published. So that's about where that is.
Oh, wow. So it sounds like it keeps you busy writing books.
Oh, terribly busy. In fact, while I was in England, I stayed at the Oxenham Arms in Devon. It's the oldest haunted inn in England, and used to be a guest house for a monastery for travelers. And there are several ghosts there, and the owner there would like me to write a book about it all, which I think I'm going to do.
Well, while you were there, did you encounter any ghost?
Well, there was a lot of noises, but, you know, when you're in a building that's 7 centuries old or 6 centuries old, and you've got slanted wooden floors and the wind's blowing outside during a gale, you get creaks and groans, and what they were probably were just nature. I didn't actually have any paranormal experiences, and I was rather hoping for some, in a way. But when you're alone in your hotel room, and the wind's whistling outside under the eaves, and it's dark and it's cold out there, you really don't want something that's going to scare you, make you run out into the night.
Oh, yeah. And could you imagine, trying to sleep at night with all those creaking and all that stuff going on?
Well, I mean, it's a noisy building, and it wasn't because of people. It was just because of the age of the building. I mean, it's really old. In fact, there's a standing stone that the building is built around right in the snug of the downstairs pub. And that standing stone is thought to be about 7,000 years old. And there's about 9 feet of it showing above ground, and they think maybe as much as 12 to 17 feet below ground. They're not even sure. And this thing is supposed to have magical properties like healing when you touch it, that sort of thing. So, of course, I touched it. Mind you, having someone walk in on me while I'm sitting there stroking a giant stone didn't make me feel really great. But what the heck? If it was going to heal, I was going to try it.
Did you feel...
Yeah, it's called Stone of Menhir, I believe it's called.
Did you feel rejuvenated after you touched it?
Well, it's odd. It felt warm, which surprised me, because we're talking about something made of solid stone, granite probably. And it did feel warm to the touch. It was not unpleasant at all. And yet, if you were to, and I did this, you touched the floor, which is also flagstone, and the walls, which are also stone, they were cold. So why the Stone of Menhir was warm, I don't know. Maybe it's a different type of stone. Who knows?
Interesting. What type of ghost stories did they have at that pub? What was going on?
Well, they have several different ghosts. A young girl who touches people when they're in bed, like lays their hand on their legs or something. They have been seen. There is an older woman, apparently, and there's supposed to be a man, but they stress that none of these ghosts are of the evil or inimical kind, that they are all basically friendly and just lost souls from different periods in the history of the inn. And I never had a negative feeling. I never felt cold spots or anything like that. It did feel surprisingly comfortable, and I will definitely go back there. They are having a Ghost Hunters show going there, I believe, on May 17th, near the end of May, anyway, of 2020. So if you want to be around when they're actually doing a ghost hunting there, that would be the time to book a room.
It sounds like it. Now, James, do you have a question? Because you're really into ghosts. Do you have a question about that with Rob?
Yeah, you say you may do a book on that place that may be haunted. How would you delve into that for the research? Would you stay there and try to experience something, or have you had some past experiences with some ghosts?
Well, I have done ghost hunting before, like the Prospect Mansion up in South Ohio, when I was an investigative columnist for Alien Skin magazine, along with my editor from that magazine, by the way. And we did find some interesting stuff there. We found a shadow crossing a wall that absolutely couldn't be accounted for, because the light that would have had to cast a shadow was right in front of us, and there were about 30 of us there, and nobody was in front of that light. And we clearly would have seen them. It was just a few feet away if they had been. So this shadow moved across the wall that we can't account for. There were cold spots. One person even apparently photographed some ectoplasm. And also there were some odd voice recordings as well, electronic recordings. So, yeah, I've had some experience in the back, and I would want to go back, and I would want to spend time there, and I would like to try to get more of a feel of the place than 3 nights could give me. But actually, in this particular case, the owner of the pub inn has done most of the research. And when he found out that I was coming, he said, "Oh, you've written a lot of books, and I've heard about you." I said, "Well, thank you." He said, "Would you be interested in writing a book about the place? When you come, we can share a bottle of port and discuss it." So I went over there, and we discussed it, and he's quite willing to give me all this research of, some 6-7 years' worth of effort. So I said, well, we could co-author the book under those conditions. He says, "Oh, no, that's not necessary." I said, "No, honestly, if you've done all the research, your name has to be on the book as well as mine. I can't just take your research and write a book and not give you credit,
Wow, fascinating. Now, have you ever been, when you were there, you never got touched or anything? Like he said, it was the spirits would touch people. You never experienced that there or anywhere else?
I experienced a definite cold spot at the Prospect Mansion in southern Ohio, which I cannot account for. I was in a basement. There were no windows. There was no draft. I was in a closed room, and I felt a very definite cold spot. And I asked someone else to come over and feel it, and they felt it as well, and then all of a sudden it was gone. So I did feel that, and we did capture that shadow figure, and we did capture some weird voices when we were investigating the building. And but again, you would really want to follow that up with a much more in-depth investigation. I was only there for several days, and we spent every night, all night, walking around this freezing cold mansion because it hadn't been renovated yet, up into the attics, down into the basements, into the barns and all. And that one had a very negative history of haunting. A young girl apparently plunged to her death from an upstairs balcony, and it was part of the Underground Railroad, and apparently several African Americans had been captured and hung from the rafters in the barn, and that could account for the shadow person we saw and filmed. And so it just depends. Again, you know, it's one of those things where I like to kick the tires of things to make sure they're real. And for me, it would mean I'd want to go back, spend a week or two there at least, and really just thoroughly investigate the place with every piece of equipment at my disposal. And the same is true of the inn. That is what I'd want to do there. But I'll tell you this, it is considered the most haunted inn in all of Devon. So, and they are having that ghost hunting expedition there, so there seems to be some real substance to this.
I got to tell you, you got to be careful in some of these places. I know me and Gary has talked about it before. You mentioned the lady fell, but some of those places that are decapitated, you got to be careful. You will fall through the floors or whatnot, and you really got to watch where you're walking. And you know, some of the buildings, they're falling apart. And I know I've had experience like that, and I think Gary had one too where he fell through. You got to be careful out there, that's for sure.
Oh, yes. I mean, if you're just going haphazardly into some tumble-down old building, you're taking your life in your hands. You better get permission. You better find out whatever you can about it, and you better test the place and see how, you know, stable the staircases are, the upstairs are, that sort of thing, or you can end up another ghost in that house.
Oh. Yeah, you could end up being the one talking to the investigators. Jeez.
Yeah. So, yeah, you do have to be careful. But, of course, England has a tremendous tradition of hauntings. They have the most haunted highway in the world, and, again, that seems to be a very negative haunting as well. The English seem to have a lot of negative hauntings, and it's been incorporated into plays, books, stories, and even operas. For instance, Lucia de Lammermoor is an opera based on that style of thing. And it's based on the true story of a woman named Lucia, or Lucy, in a castle in Scotland. And when you start reading this stuff, it does get creepy. But again, you have to discern between what you think and feel and what has actual physical evidence that you can use to support your case. There's the case of the two women at the turn of the 20th century in 1900, went to Versailles and apparently went back in time, saw Marie Antoinette, saw a very evil man, and described it in detail. These were two women of good class, good background, educational. One was the principal of a college at Oxford, and she was pushing for women to have equal rights to men there. So whatever they did was reflected on it, and they didn't write a book about it until 10 years after the fact.
Oh, wow. So that was like a time slip or something then? They said that it was a very strange series of incidents where one woman saw some things, and the other woman saw others, and some of them saw both things. For instance, they both passed by a cottage, and there was a milkmaid and a woman servant standing in the doorway, and she was pouring milk into the milkmaid's pitcher. But they weren't moving. It was almost as if it was a frozen tableau. And they also described the fact that everything seemed flat and dim, like it had been a sunny day and wind had been blowing, but suddenly everything seemed flat and almost two-dimensional. And one would spot something like a very ancient plow in front of the cottage, whereas the other one didn't see it. And then the older woman passed by a woman painting, and she later saw a painting of this woman, and it was Marie Antoinette, who was later beheaded. And
So they saw different, and some of the things they saw together, they saw two men in green livery,